Whether you're an avid Destiny fan or hope to have become one, it's hard to deny that Destiny 2 hasn't lived up to even the most conservative of expectations. Early on, we saw the game secretly throttle XP and rewards, confine content to the universally detested Eververse marketplace, and essentially focus on underhandedly strong-arming players into making microtransactions and loot box purchases. Not to mention that the game as a whole was a massive downgrade from Destiny 1 when it came to quality of life features, core gameplay elements, as well as overall quality and quantity of content. It also didn't seem like Bungie was keen on listening to community feedback, and continuous lack of transparency only made matters worse. Now, the game has been making headway throughout 2018, adhering for the most part to its development roadmap, though some promised features were delayed here and there. There is no denying that some of the recent updates have made improvements to the overall experience, that Bungie finally seems more intent on listening to feedback, and that they're being more forthcoming with what little remains of the Destiny community. Just recently, Bungie hosted an event called the Destiny Community Summit, where they invited all the major Destiny content creators and streamers to do a little back and forth so that everyone's on the same page. The general feedback from that summit seems to be that those who were invited liked what they heard about future plans, and there was a lot of great give and take, but they encouraged that we wait until Bungie actually delivers on their promises before getting too excited. But assuming everything goes well, the game may end up being adequate by fall 2018. That's still a long time towards getting to a point in which the game is back to being at least as good and feature complete as its prequel. So for a lot of people who gave up on Destiny, the question still remains, is it too little too late, especially given how much wait time is required for even minor adjustments? The way I see it, those who have somehow remained patient with Bungie shenanigans don't really see a scenario in which many of them will be convinced to return. The gaming industry is a rapidly shifting landscape, and it's always competing for players' limited time, and there are plenty of other competing games out there right now that are in a much better state than Destiny 2 is, where one's time would be better spent. Publisher Activision is likely well aware of how precarious the game's position currently is, especially judging by a PowerPoint presentation they recently showed during their Q1 2018 earnings call. If you're familiar with these financial briefings, then you'll know that a lot of it involves boasting about the company's achievements and accomplishments. After all, the goal of these financial briefings is in large part to reassure investors and keep them invested in the company. So it should come as no surprise that some of the slides feature various statements about how their franchises have been performing. They talk about how Candy Crush experienced growth for the second quarter in a row, how Call of Duty has seen its own growth while touting the upcoming Black Ops 4, how Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy is coming to more platforms, and Spyro Remaster is releasing this September with pre-orders having exceeded expectations, and how games like World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and Overwatch continue to strongly engage players. Now, what's interesting to note about this list isn't what is listed, but rather what isn't. You may have noticed that the Destiny franchise is nowhere to be found here, and it doesn't take a genius to figure that this is most likely because Destiny 2 really doesn't have anything to boast about. Concurrent player count is currently the lowest the series has ever seen, Twitch viewership has pretty much hit rock bottom, perception of the series is mostly quite negative, and overall interest and engagement has waned rapidly since the game's numerous strings of controversies. And Destiny 2's absence from Activision's accomplishments tell us that it's in a much rougher state than Activision cares to admit or mention to their investors. Fortunately for Activision, their other titles are still immensely successful. Franchises like Candy Crush, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and Overwatch in particular continue to rake in money by the hundreds of millions, picking up Destiny 2 slack. But that certainly doesn't make Destiny 2's situation any less ideal, especially considering the ripple effect it will have on a franchise that's meant to contractually go on for 10 years. With faith in Bungie and Destiny being at an all-time low, it doesn't bode well for the series in the long term. When Destiny 3 is eventually announced, the shadow of Destiny 2's infamy will always loom, and the sequel is bound to be looked upon with an air of caution and scrutiny, especially since this isn't the first time something like this has happened. When Destiny Destiny 1 launched, it was quite a disappointing state of affairs until Bungie eventually released expansions that fixed a lot of its issues. What's really disappointing about Destiny 2 is that Bungie let it happen again, and some might argue that Destiny 2 launched in a worse state than Destiny 1 did. Now, whether Destiny 2 as a game or Destiny as a series can recover remains to be seen. I personally think that the damage for Destiny 2 in particular is too extensive, and that the best Bungie can do right now is to retain the segment of the community that still remains loyal by adhering to their development roadmap and not screwing up anymore. As for the rest of us, we won't really care for the slow, delayed progress that the game is making, and we won't soon forget Bungie and Activision's original scummy intent with this game. Many won't soon forget the layers upon layers of anti-consumer practices that kept being unearthed and peeled back for months. At this point, I believe that the only way to recuperate Destiny's reputation is to really nail the launch of Destiny 3 2.5 years from now. Hell, they might want to consider extending Destiny 3's development cycle and give themselves as much breathing room as they need to really get this right, especially considering that a big part of Destiny 1 and 2's failings involved a troubled development history that resulted in a reboot that paved the way to rushed products. Regardless of how they approach Destiny 3's development, this sequel needs to first and foremost please fans and give them everything they've asked for in a complete package while making it something that new players or retired players will be compelled by. It cannot afford to ship in a half-assed state or be a downgrade from any of the prequels like Destiny 2 is. They also need to launch the game in the most consumer-friendly state possible with no trickery, no underhanded schemes, no signs of avarice, and with the intent of giving players the best experience if they intend to earn back some goodwill. If they can't show that they've learned from their epic blunders, if they find themselves with another Destiny 2 fiasco on their hands, the franchise will go down like a burning ship. Ideally, I don't want that to happen, as I do think that Destiny conceptually has a lot of potential, but its execution so far has left a lot to be desired. But hey, if they can prove me wrong moving forward, if the massive backlash against Destiny 2 was enough to jolt them awake and change their ways, then great, I would look forward to having my pessimism shattered. That's it for this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. It is completely optional, but donating even as little as $1 a month will go a long way in helping maintain this channel. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.